911, what is the location of your emergency?
I was driving along and it was cold out and I had my window up and I thought I saw something in the corner of my windshield that looked like not spotlights, but like light bulbs, with light bulbs suspended in the middle of the air.
The first thing you need to understand about March 13th, 1997 is that it wasn't supposed to change anything. It was just another Thursday night in Phoenix, another desert evening where the stars competed with the city lights for attention. But by morning, 10,000 people would share the same impossible memory, and some of us would never be the same again. My name is Detective Lisa Hartwell, Phoenix PD, 23 years on the force, and I've seen everything from cartel violence to ritual murders. I thought I understood the difference between reality and mass hysteria. I was wrong about a lot of things that night. The first calls started coming in around 8:15 p.m. Dispatch handled them routinely at first. Reports of unusual aircraft, possible military exercises, strange lights in the sky. Standard procedure was to contact Luke Air Force Base for confirmation of scheduled flights. But Luke reported no operations in the area. By 8:30, we had over 50 calls. By 9 o'clock, the phone system was overwhelmed. And by 9:30, I was standing in the parking lot behind the precinct, staring up at something that shouldn't have existed. It was massive, a perfect V formation of lights, 7 or 8 amber orbs arranged in a geometric pattern that stretched across nearly a mile of sky. But that wasn't the impossible part. The impossible part was how it moved, or rather, how it didn't move. It glided across the desert sky in complete silence. No engine noise, no displacement of air, nothing to suggest conventional propulsion. I'd been a military police officer before joining Phoenix PD. I knew aircrafts. This was not an aircraft. Jesus Christ, whispered Officer Martinez standing beside me. How big do you think that thing is? I didn't answer because I was trying to process what my eyes were telling me. The object was low enough that it should have been deafening. Any conventional aircraft that size would have shattered windows with engine noise. Instead, the night was eerily quiet, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Then something happened that I still can't explain rationally. A light seemed to notice us watching. The entire formation slowed, then stopped directly overhead. For maybe 30 seconds, we stood frozen under those amber lights, and I felt something I'd never experienced before. A presence pressing against my consciousness, probing, evaluating. The sensation was invasive, like someone rifling through my memories without permission. I could feel it examining my thoughts, my fears, my understanding of the world. And beneath that violation was something worse, the absolute certainty that we were being cataloged, filed away for future reference. Martinez made a choking sound beside me. When I looked at him, his eyes were rolled back, showing only white. Saliva ran down his chin, and his body trembled like he was having a seizure. But he remained standing, perfectly balanced, as if something else was controlling his motor functions. That's when I noticed the silence wasn't just absence of engine noise. Everything was quiet. No traffic from the nearby freeway, no insects, no wind. Even the air conditioning units on the building behind us had gone silent. The lights began moving again, continuing their impossibly smooth glide toward the south. As they passed, Martinez collapsed to his knees, gasping and shaking his head like someone waking from a dream. "What happened?" he asked, looking around in confusion. "Why are we out here?" I checked my watch, 9:47 p.m. We'd been standing in the parking lot for 17 minutes, but I could only account for maybe 3 or 4 of them. The rest was just gone. Over the next few hours, calls poured in from across the valley. Witnesses from Prescott to Tucson reported seeing the same formation, but the testimonies were inconsistent in disturbing ways. Some people described the lights as moving north to south. Others swore they traveled east to west, A few insisted the formation had circled back multiple times, hovering over their neighborhoods for extended periods. The timeline made no sense either. If the object was traveling in a straight line at consistent speed, the sightings should have followed a predictable pattern. Instead, we had simultaneous reports from locations hundreds of miles apart. But the most troubling detail was how many witnesses described the same experience Martinez and I had shared. Missing time, the sensation of being observed, and a feeling that something had been taken from them, though none could articulate what. Dr. Sarah Reeves from the University of Arizona contacted the department the next morning. She was a psychology professor specializing in trauma and memory, and she'd been following the witness reports with growing concern. "Detective Hartwell," she said when we met at a coffee shop near downtown, "I've interviewed 47 witnesses so far. 39 of them report memory gaps during the sighting. More troubling, 26 describe recurring nightmares that began the night after the event." She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were hand-drawn sketches from different witnesses, all remarkably similar, despite the fact that these people had never met. The drawings showed tall, thin figures with elongated limbs and large, dark eyes. But it was the backgrounds that made my blood freeze. Each sketch showed the figures standing in what appeared to be a medical examination room. And in several drawings, the witness had sketched themselves lying on a table, surrounded by those impossible beings. "Dr. Reeves," I said carefully, "are you suggesting these people were abducted?" She shook her head. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm documenting reported experiences. But detective, I've never seen such consistency in alleged false memories. Usually, when people fabricate experiences, the details vary significantly. These testimonies are almost identical." That afternoon, I received a call that changed everything. A rancher named Tom Morrison claimed to have found something on his property about 60 miles south of Phoenix, right along the path the lights had traveled. Morrison met me at his gate, a weathered man in his 70s who'd worked the same land for 40 years. He wasn't the type to believe in UFOs or government conspiracies. He was practical, grounded, skeptical of anything that couldn't be explained by common sense. "I've been thinking about calling you folks for 3 days," he said as we bounced across the desert in his pickup truck. "But honestly, I wasn't sure anyone would believe what I found." He led me to a clearing about 2 miles from his house. The site was approximately circular, maybe 50 feet across, and completely barren, not just of vegetation, but of everything. The sand had been fused into a glass-like substance, as if exposed to intense heat, but there were no scorch marks, no evidence of fire or explosion. "It wasn't like this a week ago," Morrison said. "This whole area was covered with creosote bush and palo verde trees. Now it's like someone just erased everything." I knelt and touched the glassy surface. It was warm, despite the cool desert morning, and seemed to vibrate slightly under my fingertips. When I stood up, I noticed my watch had stopped. But the most disturbing discovery was what Morrison showed me next. Around the perimeter of the cleared area, we found personal items: wallet, car keys, a woman's purse, a child's toy, half buried in the sand as if they'd been dropped from a great height. "I haven't touched any of it," Morrison said. "Figured that was your job." I collected the items and ran them through our database. Every single one belonged to people who'd called in sightings of the lights. But when I contacted the owners, they all said the same thing. They had no memory of losing these items. As far as they knew, their wallets, keys, and personal belongings had never left their homes. The official investigation was shut down within a week. The Air Force released a statement claiming the lights were military flares dropped during a training exercise. The media accepted this explanation eagerly, grateful for a rational answer to an irrational event. But I kept digging. I couldn't let go of the inconsistencies, the missing time, the fused sand in Morrison's field. More importantly, I couldn't forget the sensation of being examined, cataloged, and witnessed, filed away by something that existed beyond my understanding of reality. 2 weeks after the sighting, I was contacted by Agent David Walsh from an unnamed federal agency. He was polite, professional, and absolutely terrifying in his casual authority. "Detective Hartwell," he said during our meeting at a downtown hotel, "your investigation into the March 13th incident needs to conclude. The case is still open. We have evidence that you have no evidence. The items found on Mr. Morrison's property were placed there by hoaxers. The witness testimonies are examples of mass hysteria. The Air Force explanation is accurate and complete." He slid a thick envelope across the table. "Your exemplary service to the Phoenix Police Department would be better utilized in other areas. Perhaps it's time for a career change." The envelope contained a job offer with the FBI, a significant pay increase, and a transfer to Quantico. It also contained photographs of my daughter walking to school, my ex-husband leaving his apartment, and my elderly mother gardening in her backyard. The message was clear. Forget what you saw, or everyone you care about becomes collateral damage. I took the job, of course. I'm not brave enough to sacrifice my family for the truth. But I also couldn't forget what happened that night, or stop investigating on my own time. Over the years, I've tracked down dozens of witnesses from the Phoenix Lights event. The pattern is always the same: initial excitement about their experience, followed by gradual amnesia as the memories fade or become uncertain. But underneath that forgetting, something else emerges, changes. Subtle alterations in behavior, personality, capabilities. A mechanic who barely finished high school suddenly develops an intuitive understanding of complex electronics. A housewife begins speaking languages she's never studied. A retired accountant starts drawing technical diagrams for machines that don't exist. Dr. Reeves called it post-contact enhancement syndrome, though she only discussed it in private, off-the-record conversations. Her theory was that the beings responsible for the Phoenix Lights weren't just observing us, they were upgrading us, making subtle modifications to human consciousness and capability. Think about it, she told me during one of our clandestine meetings. If you wanted to study a species, to understand their potential, wouldn't you run experiments? Test improvements? See what enhancements might be possible? The idea terrified me because it explained too much. The missing time wasn't just memory loss, it was time spent being altered. The personal items found in Morrison's field weren't dropped accidentally. They were samples, collected for analysis, and the recurring nightmares weren't psychological trauma. They were recovered memories of the procedures. By 2003, I documented over 300 cases of people who'd experienced similar enhancements after UFO encounters. Some developed unprecedented mathematical abilities. Others gained perfect pitch or photographic memory. A few began demonstrating what could only be described as limited telepathic sensitivity. But the enhancements came with a price. The subjects also reported feeling disconnected from humanity, as if they were no longer entirely human. They described viewing their friends and family with a strange detachment, like anthropologists studying a primitive culture. And they all shared the same recurring dream, standing in a vast chamber filled with thousands of people, all connected by glowing threads of light to a central intelligence that was slowly, patiently, lovingly reshaping human consciousness. The breakthrough came in 2007, when I was contacted by Dr. Marcus Webb, a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins. He'd been studying brain scans of UFO witnesses and had discovered something remarkable. Detective Hartwell, he said over an encrypted phone call, every single person who reported close contact with unexplained aerial phenomena shows the same neurological pattern. New neural pathways. Enhanced connectivity between brain regions, and most interesting, areas of the brain that we don't fully understand, showing unprecedented activity. What does that mean, Doctor? It means they're becoming something we've never seen before. Not quite human, but not entirely other. It's as if someone is carefully, methodically upgrading our species. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, looking for signs of change. Because I'd been experiencing enhancements too, my memory had become perfect. I could recall conversations word for word from decades ago. My pattern recognition was so acute that I could solve complex criminal cases by intuition alone. And sometimes, in quiet moments, I could sense the thoughts and emotions of people around me. I wasn't the same person who'd stood in that parking lot in 1997. None of us were. The final piece of the puzzle came 3 months ago when I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, showing a distant galaxy designated NGC 4472. But someone had circled a small section of the image and written a message on the back. Home. We'll be back when you're ready. I had the picture analyzed by a contact at NASA. The circled area showed a region of space that was emitting an artificial pattern of radio signals, a pattern that matched the exact timing and frequency of the Phoenix Lights event. The implications were staggering. The lights weren't visitors from another world. They were advanced scouts from humanity's future home, checking on the progress of our species' development. The abductions, the enhancements, the gradual upgrading of human consciousness. It was all preparation for eventual relocation. But relocation to what and why? I think I know the answer, though it keeps me awake at night. I think Earth is dying, and something, our future selves, perhaps, or beings will become, is trying to save what they can of human consciousness before the biosphere collapses completely. The enhanced humans, the upgraded minds, the carefully selected and modified individuals. We're not being invaded. We're being rescued, one consciousness at a time, prepared for transition to something beyond current human understanding. And the most terrifying part is that it's working. Every year, more people report UFO encounters. Every year, more individuals develop inexplicable new abilities. Every year, humanity becomes a little less human and a little more something else. The Phoenix Lights weren't just a sighting. They were a recruitment event, a massive screening process to identify candidates for the next phase of human evolution. I know this because last night, I woke up floating 3 feet above my bed, surrounded by that same amber light I'd seen 26 years ago. And instead of fear, I felt like I was coming home. When I landed gently back on my mattress, I found a message written on my bathroom mirror in condensation that shouldn't have existed. Thank you for your patience. Preparation is nearly complete. End quote. I tried to wipe it away, but the words kept reforming, no matter how many times I cleaned the glass. Because here's the final truth about the Phoenix Lights. They never left. They've been here all along, working quietly, patiently, lovingly to prepare us for what's coming. And tomorrow night, according to the dreams that aren't quite dreams, the ships return. Not for observation this time, for collection. I should be terrified. Instead, I find myself packing a small bag with items I'll need for a very long journey. Items I somehow know I'll need, though I've never made this trip before. Or have I? The enhanced memory is funny that way. Sometimes I remember things that haven't happened yet, like standing on the bridge of a ship that travels between stars, looking back at Earth one final time before it becomes uninhabitable, like saying goodbye to everything human we once were, like becoming something wonderful and terrible and necessary. The lights are coming back tomorrow night, and this time, some of us won't be staying behind to wonder what we saw. We'll be going home to a place we've never been, to become beings we've always been meant to be. I can hardly wait.